Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a camera review and today is a great one. This is the Nikon Z7 II. I'm going to go right past all the usual BS that people do on these videos and just tell you straight off, is this a great camera? Hell yes, this is an awesome camera. Is it perfect? Does it do everything I want? Of course not, nothing is. If you've been following any of my work for any time, you'll know that I started off shooting film back when Google was just a funny word that no one had even thought of yet. I moved into the DSLR market around the time of the D3, the D700, that sort of era there. And I've been shooting with the DSLRs ever since, until now I've finally gone mirrorless. I predominantly use cameras for shooting landscapes. I don't do so much in the, the model, the fashion, or the bridal anymore. Mainly now it's doing a lot of travel and landscapes. And this thing's got a beast of a sensor in it, which makes it perfect for the kind of shooting that I do. One of the other things I really like about this is that I'm able to use all of my normal Nikon glass as well. I have a whole bunch of great pro lenses, and using this the FTZ adapter that comes to go from the Z mount to the F mount works flawlessly. It allows me to keep my lenses. They're brilliant. They have all their functions. Nothing's lost. What is gained though is that instead of just having now VR lenses, I also have the in-camera stabilization, so it gives me 3 axis there plus the VR. They're incredibly stable. I can handhold shots that I couldn't do before. And for somebody who's traveling and you want to stay light, you're not always wanting to unpack your gear at every opportunity, being able just to rest the camera on my hand on a rock or something like that and take a semi-long exposure is amazing. And that's one of the things I love about this camera, is that stabilization factor. I'm new to the EVFs. I've used EVFs in other things too, video, etc. But for stills, new to the EVFs. At first it was really jarring to look through the viewfinder and have all that, all the information of how the shot's going to look be visually presented to you. When it's underexposed, the viewfinder is black, etc. When it's overexposed, it's white. And at first it's quite jarring, but then you start to really appreciate how much that improves your workflow, where you're able to see basically what the image is going to look like straight in the viewfinder. I also like the fact now that I can review my images in my viewfinder that way too. So when you're in a really harsh light, things like that, you can sit there and look straight into your viewfinder and actually zoom in and view the image. And it's almost like using a loupe, which now I don't have to carry around my neck anymore. So that's a bonus with these things too. Other things I like about this is the focusing setup. Now a lot of people have bitched and moaned about it. They've talked about how it's an extra button press, blah, 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 to get the tracking and all sorts of stuff. I really don't think of it as being a pain in the ass. It's different. If you're used to the regular Nikon system, this is different. It's a completely different setup. You're using buttons, dials, you're sort of filtering touchscreen, all different ways to get through those shooting modes, those focus modes, but they're all still there. And the tracking, once you know how to use it, is phenomenal. It works really well. The human tracking, the eye tracking is brilliant. In video, it's brilliant. For animals, it's great. I've had no problems with the tracking mode. Some of the small things I've had problems with have just been the learning curve that I've been going through, where I didn't know exactly how to switch something on or off properly. That's been probably about the worst of it. But once you figure out how those modes work, they work really well. And the camera's fantastic at tracking subjects, at keeping them in focus. Even when you're shooting at really, really wide open apertures, f2.8, f1.8, even down to f1.2. I found the tracking and the focus as being really exceptional. Highly impressed with that. I've heard a lot of people talk about how this camera doesn't have a fast enough burst rate. But the burst rate is pretty good. It's not amazing. It's not up to the speed of, say, a lot of the pro bodies might be, but it's pretty good. What really sets it apart though, is because it has those dual processors. It just keeps on going. The buffer is amazing. So you can just sit there and shoot and shoot and shoot. I think it's 70 something images at nearly 50 megapixels. It's crazy. It's more than enough. Okay, one of the other things I've noticed when shifting from the old school sort of DSLRs to this mirrorless format, this mirrorless body, is there's a lot of buttons in different places. You still have, of course, your play and your garbage bin up here in the same spot as they used to be. But now, instead of having all your buttons down along the side of the back of the screen here, they're moved over into different spots. So it's a little bit cumbersome getting used to where they are, especially when you've been shooting for a long time and you're going to intuitively kind of reach for those spots. I like the fact that I can program these function buttons down here next to the lens and put different things in there as I want them. I love the fact that I can set the user settings and then the function buttons will play differently with different user settings. Really enjoying that. I like the fact that I can switch to the burst mode quickly. I like the fact that I can zoom, crop in on my images and my focus points quickly using the button. But I also like the fact that the I button will allow me to go into my little custom menu screen and I can touch screen and move things around there. Really, really useful. Once you figure out how to set the camera up so it works for your flow, I think you'll forget all about how that used to be laid out and be really stoked on how it is laid out now. So that's really good. Another thing I like to do is time-lapse photography and really long exposures, and this camera is really geared up for that. So they've got now the ability to shoot up to 900 seconds for long exposures straight in the camera without having to use a third-party app or a trigger release, which is absolutely brilliant. Another thing I love about that too is that on this top display up here, it actually counts down and lets you know how many seconds you've got left, which is really, really cool. Now that only works once you break past 30 seconds. Would like to have seen that just continued on all the way through, so you could just count down even a 20-second or a 30-second exposure. But for some reason they decided not to put that in there, maybe in a firmware update, but that would be really useful. I'd also like to see, if possible, if they could have maybe put that countdown up here on the back screen when it's counting down. Just even very pale, very light, not very luminous, so it's not interfering with the shot, but just so you could sit there and not have to try to look over the top of the camera all the time to see what the countdown is. A small one on the back there would be fantastic. Now, while we're talking about the time lapses as well, even though this camera shoots 8K easily, it shoots well over 8K, it does output 4K time lapse in camera. What's great about it as well is that it will still save the raw files if you want to go and take it into Lightroom time lapse, etc., and have a play around with the actual images to get a bit more out of it, or turn it into an 8K sequence. That's possible, but you can just get your 4K straight in camera, which is fantastic as well. That leads us into talking about video. Video functions on this camera are great. I want to say they can shoot great photos and do nice videos, so that's why I went with this one. The other reason I went with this is that I shoot a lot of my footage, as I am right now, on the Blackmagic 4K pocket cinema camera, and this camera now can shoot basically the same frame rates as that 4K can do, so I can match those up, but it can also output to the Blackmagic Video Assist, I think is what they call it. It's an external recorder, and then I can get the same B-RAW out of both the cameras. And it's going to give me a really similar look when I'm trying to shoot multiple cameras and try to match things up in post. The other thing that makes this exceptional, where I've always had problems with Blackmagic, is now I'll be able to have active autofocus on one of my cameras when I'm shooting a two-camera setup, or if I'm shooting something where there's a lot more motion going on, I can have this camera tracking and shooting in that 4K, slow motion 120 frames per second if needed, 60 frames per second when wanted. And I can have that while I manually focus my other camera. I can kind of set that up and let it go. Even if I'm shooting like different focal lengths and stuff. It's just a great additive to have there, and it really complements the setup I already have in place. So really, really glad about the video functions there. Are they going to be the best they could be? No, of course not. But it's not really designed to be a video camera. It's a still camera that shoots video, so keep that in mind for that. One other good thing when you're talking video as well, if you're doing location hunting with this camera, it's really good. If you switch your display little toggle over here to video mode, and then you hit the shutter button, not the video record button, but the shutter button, it'll actually shoot a still frame, and it will show you, the still frame will look exactly how the video will look. So it's great for going ahead, location hunting, storyboarding out, blocking out a scene. You can sit there and use this camera to get all those images, so you can run a really good storyboard. And that's super useful for those situations. It's just a nice little thing I noticed. Okay, another thing as well, it's got this cool little button here on the side where you can toggle between where you're viewing your images, whether it's automatically switching using the sensor to the viewfinder or to the back screen, whether it's just through the sensor, whether it's predominantly through the EVF, or whether it's just on the back screen. Being able to toggle between all those is fantastic, depending on the kind of shooting you're doing. Now, as most people said, this thing now has the 2 card slots it didn't have before. You have the XQD or the CF Express and the SD card slot. Always good to have redundancy when you're shooting. Okay, so another thing I really love about the Nikon Z7 II is that when you switch into manual mode, you can use focus peaking. Now, if you haven't done focus peaking before, it basically just illuminates the areas that are in focus in a color. You can choose red, blue, whatever, I'm not sure of the options. I always go with red because that's what I'm used to. But it gives you this focus peaking, which is fantastic when you shoot in landscapes like this, So then you get full manual control over your focus points. You're not messing around trying to get the focus and then switch it to manual. Switch it to manual, dial in that focus, and you're good to go. Now, while I'm here, I thought I'd take a moment just to talk about this new filter I bought. It's by K&F Concept. It's their ND 100mm square ND64, and it's fantastic for this kind of shooting. I saw it was on sale. It was a bargain. I was going to go with a Lee filter, but they were a lot more expensive. This one was on sale. I've used K&F Concept before. I use it with my video cameras with their variable ND, and the image quality is fantastic. So I'll grab the ND filter. While it does slip a little bit inside the original Lee filter holder, it's a little bit thin for it. A little bit of masking tape on the sides fixes that, and it works fantastic. It renders really great. Highly recommend looking into that. Great little company, not super well renowned yet, but they make great products. And now on front of that, I'm going to slide in my Lee grad and see if I get a nice shot of this waterfall. Okay, so another thing to keep in mind if you're considering jumping across to the Z is lens compatibility. A lot of third-party lenses are not compatible with this camera. Particularly, I've noticed the Tamron, the 150 to 600 first generation, completely useless. That camera is totally only manual focuser and no image stabilization. The version 2, I've heard you can upgrade it at Tamron's factory, or you can buy an adapter that'll allow you to upgrade it yourself, and then it's useful. Haven't tested that myself. Oddly enough, the first Tamron 70 to 200 2.8, that works fine. That's fine. It works great. That's the old push-pull manual to auto thing. That's a good lens. It works on this camera. Second generation, completely useless. That doesn't work at all. So if you are sitting on a pile of third-party lenses, make sure you check your compatibility before you drop the hammer on the camera. Otherwise, you're going to get stung looking for new glass or trying to find ways to make it compatible, and it's just going to be an absolute pain in the ass. If you have a bunch of Nikon glass, however, it works flawlessly. It's beautiful, it's crisp, it works exactly as it's meant to. It's very fast, there's no lag in the autofocuses, etc. using the adapter. Absolutely fantastic with the Nikon glass. Just something to think about. Look, if you're on the fence about buying the camera, I'd say jump over. It's brilliant. You're not going to regret this camera. They might come out with something new, which they will, undoubtedly. Something better is coming. Other cameras might be able to do a few more tricks and stuff like that. But if you're a Nikon shooter and you're looking to upgrade to mirrorless, or you're looking to jump into the next level of cameras, you won't be disappointed. It's a brilliant camera. The images are beautiful, the files are gorgeous, it works well, it's tough, it's robust, and you can still use all your old glass as long as you've got that adapter. I say go ahead and do it. That's just my review. Super stoked with it. Yeah. That's about all you can really talk about. It's a camera. It shoots photos. It's beautiful. And it does video. Excellent. If you like this video, comment, subscribe, all that kind of junk. It helps me keep doing what I'm doing. Keeps me coming to places like this. And most importantly, happy shooting.